that some places are just evil. And when that happens, you go and you get your belongings, and you don't say where you're going to go, and you just leave the house. He goes that it's just evil ground that cannot be cleansed.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth's out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and bullets run amok.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I really do want to thank everybody for all the support I've been getting over the last couple months. At the time of this recording, we're approaching 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't yet and you're enjoying the show, hit that subscribe button. Comment on the video, like it, share it out with a friend. It's the only way we can grow. Don't forget, October 4th, 2025, the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree in Ada, Ohio. I'm going to be there. Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptids, Chumming with the Spirits. You're going to see them all there. It's all put on by Cryptids of the Corn. There's so many podcasters, so many great speakers, vendors, food. It's going to be a great time. It was great last year. It's going to be even bigger and better this year. Come out, get your picture taken, say hi. I love meeting all my fans. Tonight's episode is a good one. We have Maxim Furek returning. Last time he came on to talk about the lost tribes of Bigfoot. This time, we're talking the Smurl haunting, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and with the Conjuring movie just come out, you're not going to want to miss this one. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methencamp. On tonight's show, we have returning guest, Maxim Furek, rock journalist, psychologist, author, researcher, and he couldn't get enough of the mullet, so he came back for more. Max, how you doing tonight?
Real good, John. Thanks so much. We're in the midst of a heat wave here in northeastern Pennsylvania. 99 degrees 2 days in a row, so this is nuts. Just we're staying inside with the AC, so that's about it.
I saw a graphic the other day, I think it was yesterday or Sunday, that Indiana was hotter than Florida. That shouldn't be.
I know it shouldn't be. Yeah. It's same here in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean,
yeah, it's been horrible.
This is life threatening, especially for, I don't know, older people or sickly people. I mean, you just got to watch it. Just, we're not used to this. So, and it happened fast.
Right.
It happened really fast. So
right.
we were invited to the Bigfoot Expo down in Wyers Cave, Virginia, went down there. And that's when the weather started to turn and it was really cranking up. So, we had a lot of heat down there and we came home to a lot of heat. So, it's just the way it is. So anyway, I don't know.
Speaking of Bigfoot, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention I did receive your book. I appreciate it. I'm about halfway through it. Very busy man. Very busy. But it's a great read. Like, it took me just a few hours. I do read kind of fast, but it only took me a couple hours to get halfway through the book. So I like it. I like it. I can't wait to get through the rest of it. But I really do appreciate you sending me that. We discussed that book the last time you were on.
Correct, yeah.
This time, though, we're going to talk about Coal Region Hoodoo. We had brought it up post-interview last time.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Seeing is believing.
But you dive into, in this book, you dive into like the Warrens from the Conjuring and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the book first?
Yeah, Coal Region Hoodoo came out in 2023, and this was the result of quite a few years of writing, researching the paranormal. So Coal Region Hoodoo pertains to the Pennsylvania Northeast, and hoodoo means either a blessing or a curse. And I got involved in the paranormal with the Shepton mythology, you know, the three guys that were entombed for 2 weeks. Only two came out, and this was a miraculous story of human survival. But as soon as they got rescued, the townspeople wanted to know what happened to your buddy. And so instead of celebrating this rescue, some people were accusing them of cannibalism, you know, in order to survive for those 2 weeks. So it was a combination of some good stuff and some bad stuff. And that's what hoodoo is. It's a blessing and a curse. So certainly with Shepton, that's what it was. So I talk about a whole bunch of that. There was a famous haunting in northeastern Pennsylvania called the Smurl haunting. And for your listeners who have never heard of this, keep your eyes in focus, because there's going to be a new Conjuring movie coming out in September talking about the Warrens and their involvement with the Smurl haunting. That's how I met them. So this was in 1988, and Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were Roman Catholic demonologists from Connecticut. They came to this real touristy little place in Pennsylvania called Jim Thorpe, and they were on a 15-city book promotion tour to promote their book, The Haunted, which was about the Smurl haunting. So they were co-writers along with Jack and Janet Warren, Jack and Janet Smurl. And so I met them there and hung out with them, took pictures. And this is something that I'm really proud of. This is in the beginning of Coal Region Hoodoo, but there's Ed and Lorraine Warren. That's my shot of 1988. And, I stayed in touch with them. I would call Ed and say, Ed, how did you do battle with those demons? And Ed Warren would say that I would go and evoke the image, the authority of Jesus Christ, of Padre Pio, and of Saint Michael the Archangel, and do battle with these demons. So, and some people believed him and some people didn't, but I have this thing that I put together called the universal rule of 90, that in any situation, and forget about 100, but just look at things in terms of 90, that even in the example of Ed and Lorraine Warren, 30% of the people were true believers. They believed everything they said. 30% said no, they were con artists, and 30% were on the fence. They're on the bias. I mean, they either didn't care or they could be convinced either way. But if you believe that evil exists, if you believe that the devil exists, if you believe that there's a realm of demons and demonology, then you have to believe that what they were doing is legitimate. Not everybody does. In my book, in Coal Region Hoodoo, I talk about Shepton and I talk about Pope John the 23rd, who was in the mine for 2 weeks. The miners claimed that, along with the cannibalism, they believed that Pope John the 23rd was there and saved their lives, that he performed the miracle. So here you have the hoodoo, the good and the not so good, the cannibalism and the miracle. But here's the thing. Pope Francis, who just died recently, in 2014, he had a dual canonization. He entered into sainthood two priests. One was Pope John the 23rd, and the other was Pope John Paul II. Pope John Paul II was an exorcist. And what he did was he put together a college of exorcism. He invited priests from 132 different countries to come there to learn this medieval art of exorcism. And the reason for that is because Pope John Paul II believed that evil exists and the devil exists. And the devil doesn't want us to think that he or she exists. A lot of people think it's old-fashioned. It's just like an old bedtime story to frighten children. Children, if you don't say your prayers, the devil's going to get you. Or if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell or whatever. We've all had, our fill with stuff like that. Let's face it, we were scared. But that was what Pope John Paul II said. And I believe that. I believe that there's a spirit world. We came back I was invited to the Butler Paranormal Conference in April 26th in Western Pennsylvania. And I was one of the guest speakers, but on the same bill were the Psychic Vincent sisters. And they're just a delightful group of siblings. And they're there talking on stage. And this one guy raised his hand, and here he was a ghost hunter. And he didn't belong to any official ghost hunting group, but he would go out there by himself. He would go to these shut down prisons and mental institutions, your typical haunts. And he's claimed that the one night he was attacked by some demon, and he showed pictures on his camera. His eye had been gouged out. It was just hanging. He showed claw marks on his chest. And I know, it was hard. I saw him. I went up there and I looked at it. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was horrific.
Holy cow.
It was horrific. The psychic Vincent sisters said that there was an attachment. There was a demon that attached themselves to him, and that's what it was. And they recommended that he just go and get himself a whole lot of holy water and crucifixes, and get into some of the goodness and some of the positivity. But I saw those pictures, and they were nasty. So, whatever that was, but they thought it was the demon that attached themselves. And let's face it, I mean, we're in this age where there's a lot of people that are ghost hunters. They go into these places looking for demons. Now, what do you expect to find? I mean, what are the variations? The lost souls that are just confused, or maybe the predators, the demons that are looking to snatch a soul. Well, I think that's what happened to this guy. So he got snagged. I mean, they came after him, but anyway,
I mean, like Nietzsche said, when you stare into the abyss stares back. And if you're going into these haunted locations and looking for demons and looking for ghosts, they're looking back at you. You're probably going to find them.
Yeah. And there's that law of probability. You do this long enough, something's going to happen. You'll make, it's like looking for love, keep on looking, you'll find it.
Just got to make sure you're looking in the right place. That's the thing.
Yeah, we make that mistake a lot. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. We're talking about, demons and, the devil and stuff like that. What's your viewpoint on evil, the devil? Do you think it exists?
Yeah, I believe what Pope John Paul II said. Yeah, I believe that it exists. And I know a lot of people that are kind of cavalier about this. Like, it's not cool, it's not hip to admit that, like you're being, an old fuddy-duddy or a traditionalist or a conformist or whatever. And that's not true. I mean, come on, evil takes the guise of a lot of things. I mean, there's, people, whatever. I mean, I just believe that it's true, that it's valid, and that I think that what we need to do is just try to stay in the light, maybe fill yourself with God's grace, whatever. And I don't want to get real spiritual and lay my trip on anybody else, but but I believe that. I think too that like happiness is fleeting, and when something good happens, you share it and celebrate it with your friends, trusted others. And when bad things happen, when they go sideways, just ride with it, because that too will pass, whatever that is. So, but except for a demonic, attachment, that may be forever. So,
then you need an old priest and a young priest.
Yeah. They claim that these demons can attach themselves either to people or to places. And in my book, there was Father Alphonse Treebolt. He was the one that actually was able to go and cleanse that the one house, the Smurl haunting. So many people tried. Ed and Lorraine Warren were there, and they brought on in all the Catholic exorcists from northeastern Pennsylvania, but nobody was able to get the job done. Anyway, Father Treebolt from New York, Father Alphonse Treebolt came, and it took him 4 attempts, but he was able to go and cleanse the Smurl haunting. But here's the thing. I mean, that was great. He did it. Father Treebolt tried to do this cleansing in New York State, and he couldn't. And he said, he wrote in his memoirs, he says that some places are just evil. And when that happens, you go and you get your belongings, and you don't say where you're going to go, and you just leave the house. He goes that it's just evil ground that cannot be cleansed. And this was a guy that was one of the top guns, as far as demonologist, as exorcist, Father Treebolt. But there was the one place that he said that it was just like unholy ground, stay away from it. And that was the final say with that. So that was pretty interesting. But again, this was an example of demonic possession of a property, of a structure. So
you gave me a little bit of homework, and my teachers from high school are probably going to ask how you got me to do my homework. But I did look into the Smurl haunting a little bit. It seems kind of similar to the Amityville horror.
Yeah, your classic haunted house, your classic poltergeist home, and what they experienced, what the Smurls experienced. They were devout Roman Catholics. They had 3 daughters and a collie dog, which is important. But they started to experience the smells, horrible smells, grunting sounds, profanities etched in the mirrors. Jack Smurl, and I don't know how I would feel about this, but Jack Smurl admitted to the world that he was raped by a female demon, a succubus. And for us guys to admit something like that, I mean, like it takes a lot of courage, to be able to So that was so. What happened was they started to complain. The Catholic Church would send priests over to spend the night there, see if there was anything happening, and nobody could get it right. They brought in Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they weren't able to do anything. And then finally, it was Father Treebolt who came in, and he was the one that was able to cleanse the house. But I'd like to see there's going to be a motion picture in September on the Smurl haunting and the involvement of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It's called The Conjuring Last Rites. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I think a bunch of us are going to go. Again, in Coal Region Hoodoo, I have a chapter on the Smurl haunting, on Ed and Lorraine Warren, on Father Treebolt, and all of that stuff. And I'll tell you what, John, of all the things that I dabble in, whether it's flying saucers, Bigfoot, all of this stuff, I mean, demonology and what I call Catholic mysticism speaks to me in a louder voice. I mean, it just gets my attention. I mean, just like it's gripping, and I'm not sure why that is, but I mean, my curiosity is just spiked. I just want to find out as much about it as I can. And that's what we do, us paranormal, seekers, searchers, researchers, whatever we are, we have that driving curiosity. And I think that's what motivates us. That's what motivates me, of course.
And maybe I missed this. You mentioned Ed and Lorraine Warren and saying that you would call Ed. How exactly did you meet them?
Yeah. Okay. So they were in a place called Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, and I don't know. Are you familiar with Jim Thorpe? The decathlon. He was a Native American guy that won all kinds of awards and everything. It was just pretty amazing, and because he accepted some monies as an amateur, he was classified as a professional, and then he was like castigated and everything else. It was just horrible what they did. But anyway, back home in Jim Thorpe, there was two rival towns called Mock Chunk, East Mock Chunk and West Mock Chunk. And they decided that they would go and make peace and bring in the body of the disgraced Jim Thorpe and have this monument for him, and then change the name from Mock Chunk to Jim Thorpe. So that's what they did. They brought in the body. They had this thing. It was a nice tourist attraction. And then just recently, the Native Americans from Oklahoma wanted the body back. But Jim Thorpe's keeping the body here so far, But anyway, that was Jim Thorpe. So in 1988, Ed and Lorraine Warren came to Jim Thorpe. It was the beginning of a 15-city book tour for the book The Haunted, which was about the Smurl haunting. And so I heard about this, so I wrote a letter to the guy that was in charge of the theater there, and I asked if I could have permission to interview them, and hung out with them, took pictures, and it was pretty amazing. But over the years, I would call Ed up, specifically Ed, and ask him questions about how he did battle. Lorraine had a pet rooster you could hear in the background. Their big thing was the doll Annabelle. Now, Annabelle was supposed to be kept under lock and key there in Monroe, Connecticut, where the Warrens' house of paranormal museum is. And I think it's their nephew, Tony Spira, took Annabelle out on the road, took Annabelle down to New Orleans, where 2 really weird things happened that people thought was because of Annabelle. There was a prison break. I think 10 guys jumped out, an inside job. And the other one was there was a fire. And a lot of people, a lot of internet chatter blamed it on Annabelle. Now, Tony Spira was saying that, well, there's a priest there that accompanies the doll, and the doll is in their sight at all times and all this. But Annabelle's going to be in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at the conference, and that's going to be in July. So I plan on being there and meeting Tony Spira and just seeing who's there and seeing what's up with that. But that was part of the Warren's legacy. There was 9 Conjuring motion pictures, 9 worth 2.1 billion with a B, $billion. And there's no B in Mellencamp, but
Methencamp, but we don't get copyrighted here. Methencamp.
But yeah, 2.1 billion, and making The Conjuring the most successful horror franchise of all time. So that was Ed and Lorraine Warren, and just like amazing people, down to earth, and again, it's like with any aspect of the paranormal, you either believe or you don't, and I think that they were honorable people, and but interesting. They were very nice. They were kind. They walked me through this. I think they hopefully liked my energies and my interest. And I remember, I think it was in July, we were hanging out on the sidewalk there in Jim Thorpe. They did a presentation, and I'm taking pictures, but it was so cool. I'm hanging out with Ed and Lorraine Warren on the sidewalk, and on a Saturday night. It doesn't get better than that, So, but I was at the right place at the right time. This was in the 1980s. The Smurl haunting was blowing up, and I would go there, and it was just like histrionic. I mean, just all kinds of tourists and crazy people just flocking there. And I didn't knock on the door or anything. I didn't want to go and upset the Smurls because they were going through everything. One thing that happened with the Smurl haunting is the collie got picked up, it levitated, and it got flung across the room. And that was either an example of poltergeist activity, or some people have submitted that it's sort of like Stephen King wrote a lot about this. Young people, especially young women with psi powers, like Carrie, like Firestarter, like The Shining, people that had these abilities. And one of the theories is that Dawn Smurl, the young girl, tall, statuesque girl with the blonde hair, somehow manifested these powers that lifted and levitated the collie and then threw it across the room. Now, we don't know that, but that's just a theory. But still, it all sort of adds up. We don't know, but the Smurls left, and they went camping, and these demons followed them out to the campsite. And so there was an attachment there. And they were really freaked out. They were good people. They were churchgoers. They had a strong belief. They believed in God. They believed in all this stuff. So, but I don't know. I heard that when the devil gets souls, they like to get holy people. They like to get priests and clergy, because they score more points doing that. So,
I agree with that, because if there's a spiritual battle going on, people that don't believe, they're not valuable to either side, really. They're more valuable to God, trying to get them back to come back. To the devil, that's kind of a plus for him, because that's just less people believing. You would want to attack those who have a strong belief. That's just my opinion. I don't have the devil on speed dial or anything, but that's just the way I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. We try to figure this out, but we live with this. When we were in Virginia at that conference, there was this lady there selling these pillows, and it had what is the German ghoulie that would scare the kids? It's like not Kraken. Krampus. So here's this Krampus and the kids. My God. You would think that those kids would have been scared to death. That if they're bad, the Krampus is going to, I think it was a Christmas ghoul or something.
Yeah. There's like it come and stole all the bad kids.
Yeah. God. And even those fairy tales were just like, man, they were horrible. Kids being put in ovens and baked by witches, all this other stuff. Come on. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't realize those grim fairy tales. Holy cow. They are not for kids, really.
Yeah.
If you read the originals, they're pretty dark.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we survived that. It's trauma. I mean, we, as little kids, if we're traumatized, there's nothing to do with that trauma. You can't do the fight or flight. All you could do is freeze. You nip into that fetal position, absorb the trauma, and then 20 years later, here you are, and you're totally messed up, either drinking or drugging or whatever, dealing with that trauma. And that's a lot of that going on. A lot of people have a hard time going back and resolving that. So, trauma
Right.
stays with you. It's what they call a fear phobia. And you're afraid of the next trauma. It's like PTSD. You're afraid of the next explosion or gunshot or whatever. And it's really a horrible, horrible, situation, because the person who has PTSD, as well as their families, they're all traumatized and re-traumatized. And but that's all part and parcel of fear and evil and everything else. I think it fits in with.
My conversations go wherever they go. We're
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
But we can go back to Coal Region Hoodoo. One of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the cliff notes of the book, because I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Dr. Santee?
Yeah. There was a lot of the information in Coal Region Hoodoo. It pertains to my immediate area of Berwick, Pennsylvania. That's in northeastern Pennsylvania, just outside of the coal region, hardcore anthracite coal. So Johnny Yuma, Nick Adams, Nick Adamczak, he was a big TV Western guy in the 1960s. So Nicholas Adamczak is buried in Berwick. I knew his mother. I lived on the same street as her, but he was a real big, pretty successful guy. Died of formaldehyde poisoning. And that was a drug a smelly drug that alcoholics would take. And he died in a mysterious death. To this day, they're not sure how that happened, but that was Nick Adams. Another one is Richard Sharp Shaver, born in Berwick in 1907. Richard was wanted by the FBI for conjuring the UFO hysteria of the 90s. So Richard Sharp Shaver, the Shaver mystery that Ray Palmer wrote about in Amazing Stories. So Richard Sharp Shaver is pretty cool. He claimed that he was abducted by these Deros, these evil robots. And people believed him, so that was cool. But the other one was Dr. Frederick Santee, and Santee was a child prodigy. He was the youngest person to graduate from Harvard. He was 13 years old. Frederick Santee. His father and his two grandfathers were physicians. But anyway, Frederick Santee was also the high priest for the Coven of the Catta, Catta. He was a white witch. And when I interviewed him, and I interviewed him numerous times, Dr. Santee said that you could use your power for either goodness or for something that's bad. If you use the right pathway, you're sending out your energies for helping and healing. But if you do it through the left pathway, you do it for hexes and spells, put a spell on somebody. But if you do that, if you use the left pathway, it's going to come back on you. Now, Dr. Santee said tenfold. From people I've talked to, they say threefold, threefold, tenfold, whatever. It's going to come back on you.
Yeah. At
Bad
that
karma.
point, does it really matter how many times?
So, yeah, right. So when Dr. Santee had his coven initiated, it was initiated by Sybil Leek, the world's most famous witch. She was from the UK. She came over there to Santee's place in Walpollepin. That's 5 miles up the road from where I lived in Berwick. Sybil Leek, her son Julian, and her publicist. She was big on publicity. And in 1950s, when the United Kingdom revoked the Witch Act, they had an act that if you practice witchcraft, they could string you up, and I don't know what they would do, but they would do some bad things to you. They revoked that. So Sybil Leek wrote a book about witchcraft, and she opened up the doors to hundreds of thousands of people, especially women, who wanted to tap in this thing, this pagan / Wiccan thing, which is several things. One, it's not satanic, it's not of the devil. Although I suppose if you wanted to, hook up with the devil, during these ceremonies, I guess you could do that. But what it is this paganism and the Wiccacraft is trying to find out our innate powers. And if they usually would have a coven that is 12 or less people. If one of the coven members was dying from leukemia, from some kind of cancer, they would go and do their circle and use their innate energies to heal that person. It's similar to the Christian prayer circles that if Aunt Betsy is sick, you call your friends and say, hey, how about praying for Aunt Betsy? And, so you have this prayer circle. It's manifesting these positive energies and powers that we all have, John, but, you and I with our 9 to 5 jobs and everything we're doing, all the white noise, we don't have time to tap into that. I mean, it's almost impossible. If you devoted your life to being able to tap into those energies, I'm sure that you might be able to do something. But for the majority of us, we don't, because we haven't made that commitment and we don't have that time. I mean, who has the luxury of being able to go and spend their life just, trying to find out what powers, psychic abilities, and I think we all have those, but, find out what abilities we have. I certainly don't have the time.
Yeah, me either. I haven't even had time to read the book you sent me.
I'm starting to feel like you're sending some bad energy through your left arm, the left pathway. So, but anyway, so I wrote this thing about Dr. Santee, and I listened to this. Talk about like 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, things happening. So, this guy that runs an esoteric group up in northeastern Pennsylvania, he was able to track down this book. He bought it and he read the chapter on Dr. Santee. So he invited me to this esoteric conference where I did a presentation on Dr. Santee. And this woman came up to me and handed me her card. Her name was Samantha Collins, and she was from New York City. She's the producer of Oculus Alchemy. She goes, I'd like to do something on Dr. Santee. So that was 2 months later, she comes to Wallop, Pennsylvania, this old church. We're having Hurricane Helene. I think it was Helene. There was tornado warnings. I mean, it was nasty. It was just a horrific downpour. But we shot this thing, and it's on YouTube. Oculus Alchemy on YouTube, and it's the strange story of Dr. Santee. So she interviewed all of us, and so that turned out pretty good. But Samantha Collins is considering doing a documentary, an extended documentary, where we would do other interviews and then make this like maybe a 2-hour documentary that she would take around to film festival. So this is just like wonderful because, I mean, when do doors like this open? I mean, you wait at the bus stop all your life for the bus to come in. A lot of times it doesn't. So, but, Samantha Collins came up to me and handed me the card and said, I'd like to do something. And boom, 2 months later, we got her done. So that was pretty amazing. I'm just like, hard to believe that actually happened because, a lot of times in this world, you deal with people that are wannabes or they're, fakers or they're, I mean, they're good people, but they're just not there yet. They don't really have the clout that they claim that they do. But she did, and that was just a great thing. And it's Oculus Alchemy, and it's on YouTube, and it's free, so you could check it out.
I'll put a link in the description to that.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, Dr. Santee, Frederick Santee. So he was the White Witch, and he said a couple of things. I remember I interviewed him several times, but he said that he believed that the supernatural is part of the scientific, that we just don't know the laws. We don't know the scientific laws. And the example that I like to use is with Newton's law of gravity. You see an apple fall. The effect is the apple's falling, but the cause is Newton's law of gravity. So that's an easy one. But when we see,
I don't know, because I keep seeing all these people online who's saying that gravity doesn't exist.
Well, I remember. Well, I'll tell you what. I remember going to a conference, and the guy from Coast to Coast, Tim Bunnell, did an algorithm on the flat Earth theory, and he did the flat Earth theory against JFK's assassination, Roswell, and all these other things, the topical things. The flat Earth theory had more hits on that Google algorithm than anything else. So I don't know what that means. It's just that there's some driving curiosity from a whole lot of people that think or want to think that the Earth is flat. So I don't know about that, but
I hear. Okay, let's get off on a little bit of a tangent here.
yeah.
I want to pick your brain a little bit.
Uh,
We'll talk flat Earth for just a second.
Okay. Talk loud.
One of the arguments that I hear all the time is that space is made up. It's all designed to keep us under control. But wouldn't it be easier to control people if we said there's no way to get out? I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And for how long did people believe the Earth was flat and had to be convinced that it was round? I think it would have been easier to control people just by saying, nope, it's flat, and let's get rid of the people who say it's round.
That would work. And I'm in my forthcoming book, Paranormal Apocalypse, is this how it ends? I talk about fear as the driving motivator. Fear used by politicians, by religion, by society to keep us afraid. Stay afraid, go in line, conform, be like everybody else. Don't do any critical thinking. Don't do any second guessing. Just follow the crowd and all this other stuff. And that's the problem. I think 95% of us are the sheep. We just follow the leader, and there's very few of us that are using rational common sense thinking, and that's scary. This is in the United States of America. There was a thing called the Marketplace of Open Ideas. It was John Stuart Mill. He was a blind British, I want to say, philosopher, and he said that journalists will muck up this pot and all the bad stuff will come to the top, and then you and I as educated people will vote on this, whether it's good or bad. And right now it's looking like, I don't know, I mean, it looks like our whole country is so divided that even some of the bad stuff could go up, and that some of the people will go and say, this isn't so bad, and vote for it. So we're in some precarious times. We're in times where there's a lot of conspiracy theories, where we have a hard time finding out what the truth is. And not too long ago, the one guy on the internet, a podcaster who has millions of followers, told his people that President John Kennedy, who was assassinated, and his son John Kennedy Jr. were going to manifest, they're going to come to life in Dallas, Texas at Dealey Plaza on November I think it was the 11th, November the 22nd, so many years before, after he was assassinated. Young people left home, they maxed out their credit cards, and they showed up waiting to see this thing. They believe this. They believe this happened. Alex Jones, was it? Sandy Hook never happened. He went there. He was arguing with these mothers, these parents whose kids got massacred there. People believe that. And the thing that's really frightening me, it's not aliens and China and Russia and everything else, but it's the enemy within. Part of that is our stupidity, not the ugly American, but the stupid American who just is not seeing things clearly. And that's what scares me. Is that how it ends? I mean, that may be how it ends, with a whole bunch of stupid people self-destructing. I resent that. It scares me. And I think that as a paranormal researcher, we need to articulate, be scholarly and academic, and, bring some pride and respect to the paranormal realm. I see a lot of craziness out there. I mean, wow. I didn't go out much the last couple of days because of the heat, but you could use the same excuse. You don't go out because of the craziness. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know. I mean, do you have that in Indiana, or is it just here in Pennsylvania?
Oh no, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I think that the biggest problem right now, and we're way off topic, but this is okay. I think the biggest problem right now is everybody thinks they have to choose a side.
Mm-hmm.
Just think for yourself. There's no sides. It's just you. You don't have to join a group.
Right.
And you learn more by, okay, I've got this opinion. Max has this opinion. We're going to sit down and we're just going to talk about it. Now, whether we agree or not doesn't matter. It's learning, hearing the other person. But once you get it in your head that I have to agree with this group because they said something I like, so I've got to agree with this group, and I'm going to dismiss this group. You've already got yourself so closed-minded, you can't learn anything anyway.
I think if we can, let me see, if we were to put together rules, like, I mean, to use common sense, to use rational thinking, to maybe dispute, if there's something that's out there, just dispute it. I don't believe this because of such and such. Speak in a moderate tone, in a respectful tone. I mean, we need that. We have too many agitators that are using that. Too many Howard Sterns that are just trying to rattles people's cages and get them excited and rattled and emotional. But that's controversial. That gets attention. But I think we just need to have some normal voices of moderation. And if not, I mean, we're just in for another wild ride, and this has been going for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I try not to get into politics. So
yeah,
let's get back to Coal Region Hoodoo. We went off on a tangent there that I normally don't go on, but whatever.
Yeah, that was me. Okay.
No, I think I actually was one that said, let's pick your brain.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm taking full responsibility for it. So we talked about Frederick, Santee. Where else do we want to go with Coal Region Hoodoo?
Yeah. Well, Coal Region Hoodoo, when I wrote it, what I did is, and this I wanted to have an element of spirituality, and I didn't know how that would go over. Again, I felt a little bit embarrassed or whatever geeky about that. But Coal Region Hoodoo takes the spiritual and the paranormal and tries to put it closer to the scientific. So it has a whole bunch of things. Like there's a chapter there on Saint Teresa of Avila. She was a 17th century Spanish mystic and Saint Teresa said that through prayer and meditation, you could reach certain stages of, I'm never going to find any of these pictures. Never mind. Through prayer and meditation, you could reach stages of ecstasy, rapture, and what she called flight of the soul. And that's an out-of-body experience. The miners in Shepton experienced that out-of-body experience where they went up through the tunnel and were able to look down and see thousands of people with the rescue team trying to dig them out. And I'm talking about thousands of people, National Guard, the military, the Salvation Army, the paparazzi, the rubberneckers. I mean, just a whole lot of people that were there. And they could look down and see that. And they believed that it was because they were into this deep meditative state down there, and that they were following the thing of St. Teresa of Avila. She became a devout Catholic during the time of the Protestant Reformation and the Spanish Inquisition, when they were chasing down Catholics and probably burning them at the stake. I don't know what they were doing, but that's when she became a very pious, devout Catholic. There's documentation that she levitated because of her incredible, powers of prayer and meditation, that she was able to levitate. There's documentation of the nuns holding her down, just amazing stuff. And the other one that I like to talk to is Padre Pio. And Padre Pio was a priest in Italy. And Padre Pio had bled the stigmata of Christ. So he's bleeding, just like Christ. So the Catholic Church didn't believe him. They thought he was a con artist. So they took his wrist and they wrapped it with gauze and kept it like that for 6-7 days. They unwrapped it to look at it, and they were looking for signs of scabbing, of healing. They wanted to prove that Padre Pio was just as human as you and I. And they unwrapped the thing, and there he was bleeding just like the day they put that on. So the Catholic Church started to send, the Vatican started to send priests there and bishops to go and check this guy out. They couldn't believe it. Thousands of people were coming to see Padre Pio, to have him hear their confession, to look at his bleeding stigmata, all of that. The Vatican couldn't believe that this one guy was able to go and convince thousands of people to believe in his delusions. They thought they were delusions. So on top of the bleeding of the stigmata and everything else, he had to go and put up with the being criticized by the church and by his people. The other thing, though, I talked about St. Teresa of Avila, her levitation. Padre Pio had the gift of bilocation, and it's documented in numerous times that he would be two places at the same time. He would be at the opera with all of the priests and brothers, watching this opera. And at the same time, he was 100 miles away, someplace else at a social function with people seeing him, talking to him, interacting with him. Two different places at the same time, bilocation. Again, call that what you will, but it's paranormal. It's more paranormal than spiritual, but the paranormal is just as embedded in the spiritual as it is in the supernatural. And we just don't know what that is. It's like the flat earth theory. I mean, I don't know, but amazing. Padre Pio is just an incredible individual. And both these people had the gift of creating miracles. And with that, it's not that St. Teresa of Avila or Padre Pio were they were holy people, and you and I would look at them and say, yes, they're holy, but it was God working through them. It wasn't because they had the power. They didn't have the power. God channeled his energy through them, and they were able to create those miracles. So just amazing, this Catholic mysticism that I spoke about. I had a chance to do several presentations, one in Florida and one in Pennsylvania, and I had over 100 people there, Catholics, Roman Catholics and Greek Catholics, looking for answers because the church doesn't want to talk about this. Most of the people like me that talk about Catholic mysticism are crazy zealots, and, a little bit unbalanced. They have some issues, and, and the church doesn't want to be aligned with them. But with Ed and Lorraine Warren, the church asked them to go over to Enfield, England, to go and check out that haunted house, that poltergeist activity. And the church didn't want to get embarrassed, so it was sort of like an undercover job. They asked Ed and Lorraine Warren to go over there and investigate it. So, the church believes, God only knows what sort of things they've seen, with legitimate exorcisms. And the other thing too, whenever they perform an exorcist, they have to determine whether or not these individuals are mentally ill, whether they're suffering from schizophrenia or Tourette's syndrome, or if they actually are, are possessed by a demon. So that's the first call that they have to make. And I don't know how you would go about doing that. Because both of them, I would think, would be pretty similar.
Yeah. I think they have to, like a lot of the priests that before they become exorcists, I think they take psychology and different medical classes so they can identify those things.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
There was the thing. What was it? Mortification of the soul. Back in the old days. Remember in what was the Tom Hanks movie where he went looking for the Holy Grail? I forget. The Dan Brown.
Dan Brown wrote it, but what was it called?
Yeah, come on.
The something code.
Yeah, something code. But anyway, there was the one guy. I think he was the albino zealot, and he had the thing with nails.
The Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, Da Vinci Code. And he would go and just beat himself like that, or he had that sheath of nails that he would put around just to feel that. At one time, we felt that we needed to suffer like Christ. At one time, I think the church wanted us to do that, maybe even kill yourself for the Lord. But that was a long time ago, that we've changed that. We don't want people to do that. But still, every Easter, you have these Christian zealots in the Philippines and in Mexico that insist that their buddies string them up on the cross with nails, and they hang there for 3 days or whatever. But and I've spoken to priests about this, and I said, how do you feel about this? And to a person, they said that this was a sign of mental illness. It's not a sign of devotion to God. We don't want that. I think it was in A Man Called Horse. The Native Americans had this thing. Was it the sun dance, where they had the hooks, the fish hooks that they would put through a person and hang them there, and they would feel this horrible, horrendous pain. Then yes, it's true. Then after the pain, after the pain goes away, you have the ecstasy. You feel that altered state of consciousness. so pain could be a gateway to that. But I mean, what a horrible way to attain that. And for the listeners out there, we're saying, no, don't do that. You don't need to suffer and feel pain, to feel rapture and ecstasy. That's not what this is all about. And so anyway, but that was the Da Vinci Code. And Dan Brown made a lot of money on that one. But there's another example of our curiosity. I mean, man, people went to see that movie because they were curious. I memean, what is this code? What's this Knights Templar? And and all the hidden messages that I think the Masonic used. Just a lot of crazy stuff in government buildings.
Right. Well, Max, we've been going for about an hour. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, John. And I'm sorry that we went off in some really weird tangents, but
no, I think that was all me. You don't have to apologize for that.
So the listeners, if they're interested in any of my books, Lost Tribes of Bigfoot or Coal Region Hoodoo or any of them, I have 7 of them. They could either get those on Amazon.com, or they could go and hit me up on my website. It's www.maximfurek.com. And if you contact me through my website, I could get you an autographed copy of any of my books, and which would be at a really good price. So I always recommend to people to support your local authors and libraries and bookstores, not the big chains. I mean, help the little guy out and help the little guy and little girl to survive. It's there, and we do this for the love of what we do, and we don't complain. So, John, thank you so much. This was great, and I love your show, and I wish you continued success.
I appreciate that, and after your next book comes out, maybe you can come back on and tell us about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Paranormal Apocalypse. And I'm finalizing it as we speak. I'm hoping that it's going to be, we'll see how fast Hangar One can turn it around, but I'll be sending that over in a couple of days. So I'm really excited.
Nice. And I will say, I'm going to pull this up here in Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. And we didn't touch on this during this interview, but let me find one here. On each chapter, there's a barcode or a QR code.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find one here.
Yeah. It's called IBT, Immersive Book Technology.
Yeah, here it is. Right there.
Yep. And if you put your phone's camera there, that'll open up a video of me, talking about that chapter. It's really cool technology. It's almost interactive. So, I'm really glad that they did that. I mean, like I'm honored that they used that technology. Just add something to the book. It's another dimension, so
Right.
It's kind of cool.
And people can't seem to put their phones down. So now they can use their phones and read a book at the same time.
Yeah, really.
Well, Max, once again, thank you for coming on Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. And if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Make sure you're hitting subscribe. Make sure you're liking, sharing, commenting. Go find Maxim Furek, give him a follow, and buy his books. Buy them all, every one of them. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Gotta go.
Shadow in the pines lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methencamp's fiery soul. He the coyotes howl. A UFO zipping just above the trees, grabbing hold of wonder like a southern summer breeze. Some call it crazy, others call it a lie, but listen real close as the truth passes by. The lines are blurry, the story's bold. John Methencamp spins them into southern gold. Apparitions dancing in the smoky haze, legends of the deep south told in hollers and bays. Bigfoot runs free, chasing shadow dreams. Aliens keep secrets like moonlight beams. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl. A UFO zipping just above the